The Woman King, out in theaters, new historical action drama starring Viola Davis, Thuso Mbedu, Lashana Lynch, Sheila Atim, and John Boyega. It's based on a real-life story of the Dahomey tribe that existed in West Africa somewhere until the early 20th century. And this film specifically takes place in the early 19th century and focuses on the war between the Dahomey and the bordering tribes, a war in which the Dahomey employed a unique type of military unit which was comprised of women warriors. And there's also a slavery angle with the film, but we'll get to that, I promise. So apparently the film was in development hell for many, many years because the people who wrote the person who wrote it went to Africa, got inspiration for it, did all the research, came back with the idea with the script, but nobody wanted to finance it. Nobody wanted to put up money for it until Black Panther came out, ironically, and suddenly it turned out that a movie about African culture can make a lot of money. And coincidentally, and I said ironically before, because Black Panther is in many ways inspired by the story from The Woman King, some of the cultural aspects pop up between both films. I think, the focus on the culture and the costumes and all that is present in both movies, but also the Dora Milaje in Black Panther, the Women Warriors unit, are a direct reference to the Women Warriors in this film, or in this historical story, if you will. Anyway, the film is now out, and at first glance, it's pretty damn good. I mean, the story is very interesting. The pacing is very good. There's a solid mix of action with quieter moments that allow the characters to breathe and the African culture to be explored. I loved the production design, the costumes, hairstyles, weapons, all the fight choreography, the music, the ritual dancing and singing, and the customs of these people. I mean, that's just top notch. The performances are great as well. A lot of people talked about Viola Davis, but I want to highlight Lashana Lynch. I really, really enjoyed her all the way back in Captain Marvel, and she's great here as well. She just has an amazing screen presence and oozes this easy, cool charisma. I also like John Boyega, who I think he plays the king in a sort of non-obvious way. He is not exactly a powerful tyrant who doesn't take no for an answer, but he isn't a weak pushover either. He feels complicated and therefore he feels real. So good balance there. So all things considered, the judgment should be easy. Great film, right? Well, there is one problem, and it has to do with the topic of slavery. See, in the film, the Dahomey, like the other African tribes at the time, are participating in the slave trade. They are selling their prisoners to the Europeans and Americans. But Viola Davis says, no, if we win this war, we also have to drop slavery and move on to trading palm oil instead, because this is immoral. We can't do this to our people. And the king agrees, and then at the very end you have this entire hopeful and triumphant sequence and speech about how now we're going to respect the lives of Africans and not sell people anymore. Except it's all a straight up lie. I mean, I don't mind movies based on fiction where they embellish some facts or change the events slightly for dramatic purposes, but this is straight up just opposite of the truth. The Dahomeys did participate in slave trade for much longer than the movie suggests, and when it did finally pivot to palm oil, it wasn't because of morality, it was because of economics. The European nations were starting to outlaw slavery at the time, and so the market was simply shrinking. The weird thing is that there wasn't really a need to present this in this changed way in the film. I mean, the war that the movie focuses on happened anyway. The reasons for it were sort of unrelated to slavery. So you can still make a film that's 90% the same, just add the moral ambiguity to the fact that our protagonists also happen to be slavers. And honestly, I think that would have made the movie even more compelling to show how the Europeans' presence and slave trade has impacted the culture in Africa and made slavers sell their own people, essentially. But instead, the film pretends that these were the good guys all along, and leans toward a more hopeful Hollywood-style ending. So that gives me a problem with assessing the film. On the one hand, it is very well made, and I enjoyed watching it, and I loved so many aspects of it. But on the other hand, I really dislike it when historical movies stray from the truth, and this one does so in a pretty meaningful way, and that, for me at least, sours it, and I can't in good conscience call it a great movie. But I guess that's for everyone else to decide for themselves. If these misrepresentations or lies, however you want to call it, are something you can accept, then I think it's definitely a solid film to watch.